Couture Chronicles. If you're new here, my name is Daisy and I'm attempting to make from scratch the most sparkly, fantasy, magical dresses because I definitely can't afford to buy the real thing. I am not a professional, I'm not a trained seamstress, I've got no formal training. I am just, giving it a go, see what comes out at the end. I'm making loads of mistakes and just bringing you guys along to share in all of the glittery joy of the journey. So last week was all of the glitter. I was finishing off my beaded panel. It took me over 100 hours. There's nearly 11,000 beads in it. It was a massive effort. If you want to check that out, you can right here. And today's episode, we're problem solving because if I grab Dolly, can anyone see a problem? So this beaded panel looks gorgeous, but it's really, really heavy. And I thought I could sort of get away with making this corset to hold it all together, but the corset doesn't reach the widest part of the panel. So when I do finally put the silk in, this is just gonna bunch up and pull the silk and look a bit funny. So today we are designing and making some emergency underpinning to keep it all together. Woohoo! Let's go! So as one does, as one fully goes down the rabbit hole of making a dress from scratch, I have an entire pin board for underpinnings. So this is kind of what I'm looking at, seeing what I could take ideas from to help make my underpinning. The main dress is really light, so I'm playing with the idea of a short skirt paired with an extra front geometric shape to keep it light and also stable, maybe adding in a couple of lines of boning to help with that stability. Though I do think a full length option would be easier and also more stable than a short length option. It just depends on how light I can make it. Then I also thought about adding these sort of hip fluffs in to help shape the hips a bit more. So because I hadn't planned to make this underpinning, I don't have any time to go and get the materials because sourcing fabric takes actually a surprisingly long amount of time. So for the main bulk of the underpinning, I've got this old satin dress which I've already started to cut the top off of, and I've taken the zip out of it. So I'm going to use this old satin dress for the bulk of the underpinning, but I also wanted, that puffiness on the sides to help keep my hip shape. I don't have anything suitable for that, so that means raiding my mum's fabric store, which is great. So I met up with my little sister Rukins, we had a lovely day out with the dog, and then when it was time to leave, she just quietly slipped me some netting from my mum's fabric stash. Thanks, Mum. Yeah, not ideal, but satin from an old dress and netting from my mum's stash, and let's see what we can do with it. I was pinning it on the mannequin and I suddenly just thought I'll probably just be well easier if I just put it on and pinned it to me and had a go. So I've obviously got the corset on and I've pinned that to my waist, and I'm just going to get a pencil and mark it up. This doesn't feel so heavy now that I've got it on. I didn't know what I was worrying about really, so I'm pretty happy to carry on making it as a whole and then yeah, should be fine. It'll be fine. Okay, I've got a rough kind of thing going on with the satin, so I'm gonna take it off. I'm gonna get the sewing machine out. I'm gonna sew this seam back together again, and I'm also going to, from about here up to here, get the hook and eye tape out and use that as my fastenings. Let's go. Right, so I've sewn this on, so it all fits great, and it's all at a nice length at the bottom there. So I think what the next step to do is I'm going to pin all the way around the waist, and then stitch it to the corset. Yeah. That's all sewn on nice and flat now. So what I'm thinking is I might get the geometric panel pattern out and trace on that and see where everything is. I mean, I'm thinking I might add in a bar of boning, sort of maybe here and here on the thickest bits to help keep them straight and flat out. Yeah, and then pretty much just got to try and figure out how to do the poofy sidey bits. Technical word for it, of course. Okay, here's what I am thinking. So I'm going to put in a line of boning across the hips there, and a line of boning just slightly lower. Okie dokie, so yesterday managed to get the majority of the underpinning all sewn together, got the front geometric panel all traced out onto it, and sewed some boning tape in the right places. So today it should just be a simple case of cutting the boning to the right length and adding that into the channels, and then creating some fluffy hip sections. Yeah, and that sounds fine. I think we can get that all done today. Bonza, boning all done, onto the fluffy hip panels now. To make the hip fluffs, I cut out 6 identical rectangles. Each of the rectangles had one edge, which was salvage edge, which was brilliant. So then I folded it in half, sewed along the long top edge and down the second side, turned it inside out, and then turning the machine stitch length all the way up to the highest length, I then stitched a line of ease stitching, which I could then pull and it would all ruffle up like so. I've drawn some guidelines on here so that I sew the fluffy white panels on in the same place both sides, and I'll just go starting from the bottom, sew one on, then sew the next one, and then sew the top one. Ta-da! Underpinning all finished with added hip fluffs. Fingers crossed it does exactly what I need it to do, and I guess I'll find out when I finally add the dress on top of it. So hopefully it works and I don't have to make any changes to it, but we will wait and see. Onwards and upwards. So I will see you guys next week, where I'll get the silk out again and start putting this back together. In the meantime, have a wonderful week, keep being fabulous, and I'll see you next time. Bye! I was pinning it. I spent